The old piano stood in the corner of the small living room, its wooden surface worn from years of use. Some of its keys had faded, and a few carried tiny scratches that told stories of countless hours of practice. To most people, it looked like an outdated instrument that belonged in a storage room. But to 16-year-old Lily Harper, it was the most valuable thing she owned. Every afternoon after school, she sat in front of that piano and played until the sunlight disappeared from the windows. Her fingers moved carefully over the keys while her mind escaped into the music. It did not matter if she had a difficult day at school or if the world outside felt overwhelming. The piano always gave her peace. The instrument had once belonged to her grandmother, the person who first taught her to love music. When Lily was younger, her grandmother would sit beside her and show her simple melodies. They spent hours together, laughing whenever Lily hit the wrong notes and celebrating every small improvement. Those moments became some of her happiest memories. Years later, after her grandmother passed away, Lily continued practicing on the same piano. She often remembered the words her grandmother repeated again and again. Play with your heart, not for applause. Lily never forgot that advice. Unlike many young musicians, she did not come from a wealthy family. Her mother worked long shifts at a local hospital, while her father managed a small repair shop. Money was often tight, but they always supported Lily's dream. Whenever she had a school concert or local performance, they sat proudly in the front row. They believed in her even when nobody else did. One evening, Lily arrived home holding a letter in her hands. Her heart raced as she walked through the front door. Her mother noticed immediately. "What happened?" she asked. Lily smiled nervously. "I got accepted." Her parents looked confused. "Accepted where?" Lily handed them the letter. As her father read it, his eyes widened. The letter invited Lily to perform at the National Young Musicians Showcase, one of the most respected youth music events in the country. Every year, talented young performers from different cities competed for recognition from music schools, industry professionals, and scholarship programs. Getting accepted alone was a huge achievement. Her mother covered her mouth in surprise. "You did it." Lily could hardly believe it herself. Months earlier, she had submitted a recording of her performance without expecting much. Thousands of students applied every year. Now she had been selected. That night, her family celebrated with a homemade dinner. For the first time in a long while, everything felt possible. Over the next few weeks, Lily prepared constantly. She balanced schoolwork, chores, and piano practice. While other teenagers spent weekends at malls or movies, Lily spent hers sitting at the piano. She did not complain. Music was what she loved. As the showcase approached, excitement slowly mixed with nervousness. The event would take place in a large city several hours away. Lily had never performed on such a big stage before. She had never played in front of famous musicians. The thought alone made her stomach twist. Still, she reminded herself why she started playing in the first place. Not for awards, not for attention, for the music. Finally, the day arrived. Lily and her parents drove to the city early in the morning. Tall buildings replaced the familiar streets of their hometown. Everything seemed bigger and faster. When they reached the grand concert hall, Lily stared at the building in amazement. Large banners hung outside the entrance. Musicians, staff members, and contestants moved in every direction. The place buzzed with energy. Inside, the hall looked even more impressive. Bright lights illuminated the stage. Rows of elegant seats stretched across the auditorium. Lily felt very small standing there. A staff member directed participants toward registration. As Lily waited in line, she noticed many contestants carrying expensive instrument cases and wearing designer clothes. Some discussed private music academies and international competitions. Others spoke confidently about their achievements. Lily suddenly became aware of her simple outfit and modest background. For a moment, doubt entered her mind. Maybe she did not belong here. Maybe everyone else was more talented. Then she remembered her grandmother's voice. Play with your heart. The thought helped calm her nerves. After registration, contestants were guided toward rehearsal rooms. That was where Lily first met the event's music director. His name was Victor Sterling. Within the music world, he was well known. He had worked with famous performers and built a reputation for discovering talent. People respected him. Some even feared him. When Victor entered the rehearsal room, conversations immediately stopped. He carried himself with complete confidence. Every movement seemed to announce his importance. Contestants straightened their posture. Staff members became more attentive. Victor glanced around the room, observing each participant. When his eyes landed on Lily, he paused briefly before moving on. The look made her uncomfortable. One by one, contestants introduced themselves and discussed their planned performances. Victor listened carefully. Sometimes he nodded. Sometimes he offered short comments. When Lily's turn arrived, she politely introduced herself and explained the classical piece she intended to perform. Victor raised an eyebrow. "That's your selection?" Lily nodded. "Yes, sir." A faint smile appeared on his face. It was not a friendly smile, more like amusement. "Interesting choice." The room grew quiet. Lily wasn't sure what he meant. Victor looked down at his notes. Most serious competitors choose something far more challenging. A few contestants exchanged glances. Lily felt heat rising in her cheeks. "I believe this piece allows me to express myself best," she answered carefully. Victor gave a small shrug. "If you say so." Then he moved on to the next participant. The conversation lasted only a few seconds, but it stayed with Lily. Something about his tone bothered her. Still, she tried not to overthink it. The rehearsal continued. Several contestants performed short sections of their music. When Lily's turn came, she sat at the rehearsal piano and began playing. At first, her hands trembled slightly. Then the familiar comfort of the music took over. The notes flowed naturally. She focused entirely on the melody. For a few minutes, she forgot about the audience around her. When she finished, the room remained silent. Lily looked up. Some contestants appeared impressed. Others seemed surprised. Victor, however, showed little reaction. He leaned back in his chair. "Technically acceptable." The words landed heavily. Technically acceptable. Nothing more. No encouragement. No praise. Just those two words. Lily thanked him politely and returned to her seat. Inside, disappointment settled in. The rest of the rehearsal passed slowly. Victor spent considerable time praising several contestants he seemed to favor. Whenever he spoke to Lily, his comments remained short and cold. By the end of the session, she felt exhausted. Later that afternoon, contestants gathered in the main auditorium for orientation. Victor stood on stage addressing everyone. He spoke about excellence, professionalism, and competition. Then he began discussing what separated ordinary performers from exceptional ones. As he talked, he looked directly toward Lily's section. "Sometimes," he said, "people mistake effort for talent. Hard work is important, but it doesn't automatically create greatness." A few heads turned toward Lily. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe not. Either way, the message felt personal. Lily lowered her eyes. For the first time since arriving, her confidence began to crack. After the meeting ended, she quietly walked outside. The evening air felt cool against her skin. She found a bench near the building and sat alone. The city lights flickered in the distance. For several minutes, she simply stared ahead. The excitement she had felt for weeks seemed to be fading. What if Victor was right? What if she wasn't good enough? What if she embarrassed herself on stage? Those thoughts circled endlessly through her mind. Then her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. "We're proud of you, no matter what happens tomorrow." Lily smiled softly. A second message arrived from her father. "Remember why you started playing." She knew exactly what he meant. Not for judges. Not for directors. Not for approval. For the music itself. Lily took a deep breath and stood up. The doubts had not disappeared completely, but something stronger remained. Determination. She would step onto that stage. She would give everything she had. And no matter what anyone thought of her, she would play from the heart. As she looked back at the massive concert hall glowing under the evening sky, she had no idea that the next few days would change her life forever. The next morning, Lily woke up before her alarm. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. The showcase. The rehearsals. Victor Sterling. The uneasy feeling returned immediately. She sat up and looked out the hotel window. The city was already awake. Cars moved through the streets below, and sunlight reflected off the tall buildings. Most people would have been excited to spend a day preparing for such a major event. Instead, Lily felt nervous. She kept replaying the previous day's comments in her mind. Most serious competitors choose something far more challenging. Technically acceptable. The words were short, but they had stayed with her all night. After breakfast with her parents, she headed back to the concert hall. The building was even busier than before. Contestants hurried through hallways carrying instruments and sheet music. Staff members rushed from room to room preparing for the upcoming performances. Everyone seemed focused. Everyone except Lily. Her confidence was slipping. She tried to hide it, but inside she was questioning herself more than ever. The morning rehearsal started promptly. Victor stood near the stage with a clipboard in his hands. As contestants arrived, he greeted several of them warmly. He praised one pianist's technique. He complimented another performer's creativity. He laughed and joked with a few participants. But whenever Lily approached, his attitude changed. His expression became distant, cold, almost annoyed. At first, she wondered if she was imagining it. Then it became impossible to ignore. One contestant performed a piece and made several noticeable mistakes. Victor smiled and encouraged him. "Keep working. You've got great potential." A few minutes later, Lily performed part of her piece again. This time she played nearly perfectly. When she finished, Victor simply looked at his notes. "You still lack stage presence." That was all he said. No explanation. No advice. Just criticism. Lily nodded politely and returned to her seat. Inside, frustration was growing. She wanted to improve. She welcomed honest feedback. But Victor never seemed interested in helping her. It felt as though he had already decided she wasn't good enough. As rehearsals continued, several contestants began noticing the difference in treatment. A violin player sitting nearby leaned toward Lily during a break. "Don't let him get to you." Lily forced a smile. "I'm trying." The performer glanced toward Victor. "He does this sometimes." "What do you mean?" "He picks favorites." Lily looked surprised. The violin player shrugged. "If he likes someone immediately, everything they do is amazing. If he doesn't, nothing they do is good enough." The comment stayed with Lily. Maybe she wasn't the only one who noticed. Later that day, contestants gathered on stage for group instructions. Victor walked slowly across the platform while explaining performance procedures. Then he stopped. His eyes settled on Lily. "You'll be opening the afternoon rehearsal session." Several contestants looked surprised. Opening a session placed extra pressure on performers. Lily nodded. "Yes, sir." Victor folded his arms. "I hope you're prepared." The tone carried an obvious challenge. A few people exchanged uncomfortable glances. Lily quietly answered, "I am." Victor moved on without another word. The moment left a strange feeling hanging in the room. By the afternoon, contestants began taking turns on the main stage. The auditorium was mostly empty except for staff members, judges, and participants. Still, standing under the bright lights felt intimidating. When Lily's turn arrived, she walked toward the piano. Her heart pounded. She sat down and placed her hands on the keys. For a moment, she closed her eyes. Then she began playing. The music flowed smoothly. The large auditorium filled with gentle notes. Everything seemed to disappear except the piano. For several minutes, Lily forgot about Victor. Forgot about the judges. Forgot about the pressure. She simply played. When she finished, the room remained quiet. Not because people disliked the performance. Because they were listening carefully until the final note faded away. Several contestants applauded softly. One judge nodded with interest. Then Victor spoke. "Stop." Everyone turned toward him. Lily looked confused. Victor stood from his chair. "You rely too much on emotion." The comment caught her off guard. He walked closer to the stage. "Music requires discipline, precision, control." Lily listened respectfully. Victor continued. "What you're doing feels amateur." The word hit harder than she expected. Amateur. The room became uncomfortably silent. Nobody seemed sure how to react. Lily felt every eye on her. She wanted to defend herself. She wanted to explain her interpretation of the piece. Instead, she simply nodded. "Thank you for the feedback." Victor returned to his seat. The rehearsal moved on, but the damage was done. For the rest of the afternoon, Lily struggled to concentrate. Every mistake felt larger. Every criticism felt personal. By the time rehearsals ended, she felt emotionally drained. Outside the concert hall, she called her mother. The moment she heard her voice, the emotions she had been holding back began surfacing. "How was rehearsal?" her mother asked. Lily hesitated. Then she told her everything. The criticism, the comments, the way Victor treated her differently. Her mother listened quietly. When Lily finished, there was a brief pause. Then her mother spoke softly. "Do you know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're giving one person's opinion too much power." Lily stared down at the sidewalk. "It doesn't feel like just one opinion." "Maybe not. But did you come here for him?" "No." "Did you start playing piano because of him?" "No." "Then don't let him decide your worth." Lily felt tears forming in her eyes. Her mother continued. "You've worked too hard to let someone else's attitude erase years of dedication." The words helped. Not completely, but enough. That evening, contestants attended a small networking event inside one of the conference rooms. Tables were arranged around the room with snacks and drinks. Musicians, teachers, and organizers mingled together. Lily almost skipped it. She felt exhausted, but her parents encouraged her to go. "You never know who you'll meet," her father said. Reluctantly, she attended. At first she stayed near the edge of the room, watching, listening, keeping to herself. Then something unexpected happened. A few contestants approached her. One complimented her rehearsal performance. Another said they enjoyed her interpretation of the music. A third admitted they thought Victor had been unfair. The conversations surprised her. She had assumed nobody noticed. Apparently many people had. As the evening continued, more participants joined the discussion. Several shared stories about facing criticism from teachers or judges. Others talked about moments when they doubted themselves. For the first time since arriving at the showcase, Lily felt less alone. Everyone was dealing with pressure. Everyone had insecurities. Even the contestants who appeared confident. The realization comforted her. Near the end of the event, she overheard two staff members speaking nearby. They didn't realize she could hear them. "Victor seems unusually focused on that young pianist. I noticed. She's talented. Very. Then why is he so hard on her?" The second staff member sighed. "Who knows?" The conversation ended as they walked away. But their words stayed with Lily. Talented. The word felt strange after everything she had heard from Victor. For the first time in days, she wondered if maybe his opinion wasn't the complete truth. Later that night, back at the hotel, Lily sat alone with her sheet music. The room was quiet. Outside, city lights glowed against the darkness. She stared at the pages in front of her. Part of her wanted to change everything. Maybe Victor was right. Maybe she should choose a different approach. Maybe she should play differently. Maybe she should become the performer he wanted her to be. But another part of her resisted. The deeper part. The honest part. The part that remembered sitting beside her grandmother years ago. The part that remembered why she loved music. That voice asked a simple question. If she changed everything to please one person, would the performance still be hers? Lily sat silently for several minutes. Then she closed the sheet music. She already knew the answer. No, it wouldn't. She walked over to the hotel piano in the lobby. Nobody else was around. The late hour had left the space nearly empty. She sat down and began playing softly. No judges. No competition. No pressure. Just music. The familiar feeling returned. The same feeling she experienced at home. The same feeling her grandmother always encouraged. For nearly an hour she played, and with every note her confidence slowly returned. Not because she suddenly believed she was perfect. Not because all her doubts disappeared, but because she remembered something important. Music was not about impressing everyone. It was about connecting with people, about telling a story, about making someone feel something. When she finally stopped playing, she noticed an elderly hotel employee standing nearby. He had been listening quietly. He smiled. That was beautiful. Lily felt surprised. Thank you. The man nodded. You play from the heart. The words instantly reminded her of her grandmother. A warm feeling spread through her chest. As she returned to her room that night, she felt different. The criticism still hurt. Victor's attitude still bothered her. But something had changed. She no longer felt defeated. The performance day was getting closer. And deep inside, a new determination was beginning to grow. No matter what happened next, she would step onto that stage as herself. Not the performer Victor wanted. Not the performer others expected. Just herself. And she would let the music speak louder than any criticism ever could. The morning before the final showcase felt different. When Lily opened her eyes, she noticed something had changed inside her. The nervousness was still there. The pressure was still real. But the fear that had followed her for days was no longer controlling her thoughts. She sat quietly beside the hotel window and watched the city wake up. Cars moved through the streets below. People hurried toward work. The world seemed busy as always. Yet for Lily, everything felt focused on one thing. Tomorrow would be the biggest performance of her life. And she wanted to be ready. After breakfast, she returned to the concert hall earlier than usual. Most contestants had not arrived yet. The building was surprisingly quiet. For the first time since coming to the city, she was able to sit alone at one of the rehearsal pianos. She placed her fingers on the keys and began playing softly. No audience. No judges. No distractions. Just music. The familiar melodies helped calm her mind. As she played, she remembered the countless hours she had spent practicing at home. Rainy afternoons. Late evenings. Weekends when she stayed inside while others went out. Every note represented years of effort. No one could take that away from her. Not even Victor. When she finished, she noticed someone standing nearby. It was one of the contestants she had spoken with at the networking event. He smiled. You're here early. Lily laughed softly. I couldn't sleep much. Same. He nodded toward the piano. You sound great. Thank you. I mean it. The simple encouragement meant more than he probably realized. For days she had been hearing criticism. A few kind words felt refreshing. As more contestants arrived, rehearsals began. The atmosphere was growing more intense. Everyone knew the showcase was approaching. Mistakes mattered more now. The pressure could be felt in every room. Victor arrived shortly afterward. As usual, the energy changed when he entered. Conversations became quieter. Contestants straightened in their seats. Victor walked through the rehearsal area reviewing schedules and notes. When he reached Lily's section, he stopped briefly. His eyes moved across her sheet music. Then he looked at her. I hope you've made improvements. The comment was delivered casually, almost as if he expected her to fail. Lily simply nodded. I've been practicing. Victor gave a short smile. We'll see. Then he continued walking. A few nearby contestants exchanged looks. The moment was awkward, but something surprised Lily. The comment no longer hurt as much. A week earlier it would have ruined her day. Now it only strengthened her determination. She was beginning to understand something important. Victor's opinion did not define her ability. The rest of the rehearsal moved quickly. Contestants performed sections of their pieces while judges and instructors observed. Many performers looked nervous. Some struggled under the pressure. Others made mistakes they normally wouldn't make. Lily understood exactly how they felt. The environment was difficult. Every note seemed important. Every error felt larger than it really was. When her turn arrived, she walked confidently toward the piano. She took a deep breath and began playing. This time she focused entirely on the music. Not on Victor. Not on the judges. Not on what anyone might think. The result surprised even her. The performance felt natural, comfortable, honest. When she finished, several contestants applauded quietly. Victor remained silent. He made a note on his clipboard. Then he moved on. No praise, no criticism, nothing. Oddly enough, Lily preferred that. At least now she could focus without his constant comments. As the day continued, she noticed something she had missed before. Victor wasn't just difficult with her. Several contestants seemed nervous around him. Some openly admitted they feared disappointing him. Others constantly sought his approval. One performer changed an entire arrangement after receiving a single suggestion. Another spent hours trying to impress him during rehearsals. Watching this made Lily think. For years she had believed success came from making important people happy. Now she wasn't so sure. The performers who seemed happiest were not the ones chasing approval. They were the ones focused on their music. That realization stayed with her throughout the day. During lunch, she sat with a small group of contestants. The conversation drifted from music to personal stories. People shared how they started playing. Some came from families full of musicians. Others had taught themselves. Everyone had different experiences. Yet they all shared the same dream. To be heard. To connect with people through music. As Lily listened, she realized something else. Many contestants admired each other. There was competition, of course. But there was also respect. The event felt less like a battle and more like a community. That feeling helped ease some of her anxiety. Later that afternoon, she received an unexpected phone call. It was her father. "How's my favorite pianist?" She smiled. "I'm your only pianist." Exactly. His laughter made her relax immediately. They talked for several minutes. Nothing important. Nothing about competitions or judges. Just normal conversation. Sometimes that was exactly what she needed. Before ending the call, her father said something that stayed with her. "No matter what happens tomorrow, we're proud of you." Lily looked out the window of the rehearsal room. "I know. And remember something." "What?" "You've already won." She frowned. "The competition hasn't even happened yet. I'm not talking about trophies." His voice became softer. "You had the courage to show up." Lily sat quietly. Her father continued. "A lot of people spend their whole lives afraid to chase their dreams." The words settled deeply in her mind. After the call ended, she felt stronger. Not because she expected to win, because she remembered why she was there. The rest of the afternoon was spent polishing details. Small adjustments, minor corrections, final preparations. As evening approached, contestants were allowed one last rehearsal session on the main stage. The large auditorium looked different now. Tomorrow it would be full. Hundreds of people would occupy the seats. Judges, families, industry professionals, music lovers. The thought made Lily nervous again. But it also excited her. She sat at the grand piano and placed her hands on the keys. The instrument felt incredible. Every note carried beautifully through the hall. She played slowly at first, then with more confidence. The empty auditorium seemed to listen. When she reached the final section of her piece, she imagined the audience sitting there. She imagined sharing the music with them, not performing for them, sharing it with them. The difference mattered. When she finished, she remained seated for a moment. The silence felt peaceful. Then she heard applause. Lily turned around. Several contestants had been listening from the side of the stage. They smiled and clapped. One of them called out, "That was amazing." Another nodded. "You've got this." Lily felt emotional. Not because of the compliments, because of the support. Just days earlier she had felt completely alone. Now she realized she wasn't. That evening, the contestants attended a final orientation meeting. Schedules were reviewed. Rules were explained. Performance order was announced. Lily learned she would perform near the middle of the program. Part of her was relieved. At least she would not have to wait until the very end. As the meeting concluded, Victor stepped onto the stage. The room fell silent. He delivered a speech about excellence and professionalism. Most of it sounded similar to previous talks. Then he said something unexpected. Tomorrow, every performer will reveal who they truly are. The room listened carefully. Victor continued, "No amount of preparation can hide the truth once you're under the spotlight." The statement felt directed at everyone. Yet somehow Lily felt he was speaking directly to her again. When the meeting ended, contestants slowly left the auditorium. Lily remained behind for a few moments. She stood near the stage and looked out across the empty seats. Tomorrow they would all be filled. Tomorrow everything would become real. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt calm. For the first time since arriving, she trusted herself. Not because she believed she was perfect. Not because she expected victory. Because she knew she had prepared honestly. She had worked hard. She had stayed true to herself. And she had refused to let criticism change who she was. Later that night, back at the hotel, she called her mother. They spoke for nearly an hour. Before ending the conversation, her mother asked one final question. "Are you ready?" Lily thought carefully. Then she smiled. Yes. It was the first time she truly meant it. After hanging up, she opened her suitcase and removed a small photograph. It showed her and her grandmother sitting together beside the old piano years earlier. Lily stared at the picture for several moments. Then she placed it on the bedside table. A reminder, a source of strength. Before going to sleep, she whispered the words she remembered so clearly. Play with your heart, not for applause. The advice had guided her for years. Tomorrow it would guide her once again. As she turned off the light, she had no way of knowing that the next day would become the moment everyone would remember. The performance itself was still ahead. The audience had not yet heard a single note. Victor still believed he understood exactly what kind of performer she was. But by this time tomorrow, everything would begin to change. The morning of the showcase arrived faster than Lily expected. For a few moments after waking up, she simply stared at the ceiling of the hotel room. This was the day. The months of preparation. The years of practice. The long hours spent at the old piano. Everything had led to this moment. A strange mix of excitement and nervousness filled her chest. She sat up and glanced at the photograph beside her bed. The picture of her grandmother seemed to bring immediate comfort. Lily smiled. "Today's the day," she whispered. After getting ready, she met her parents downstairs. Her mother could tell she was nervous. Her father could too, but neither of them mentioned it. Instead, they talked about ordinary things during breakfast. Funny stories, small memories, simple conversations. It helped keep Lily calm. Soon they arrived at the concert hall. The atmosphere felt completely different from previous days. The building was alive with energy. Audience members filled the lobby. Families posed for photographs. Contestants moved through the hallways making final preparations. Staff members checked schedules and seating arrangements. Everyone seemed busy. Everyone seemed focused. The showcase was finally here. Backstage, performers waited for their turns. Some reviewed sheet music. Others stretched their hands. A few sat quietly with their eyes closed. Lily found a corner and took a deep breath. She reminded herself of the promise she had made. Play with your heart. Nothing else mattered. As the event began, contestants were introduced one by one. The auditorium quickly filled with applause. From backstage, Lily could hear the audience reacting to each performance. Some performers received warm applause. Others received standing ovations. The talent level was impressive. Yet surprisingly, Lily did not feel intimidated. Watching the others only reminded her why she loved music. Everyone had their own voice. Everyone had their own story. When her performance slot drew closer, her heart started beating faster. A stage assistant approached her. "You'll be next." Lily nodded. "Thank you." The assistant smiled. "Good luck." Lily stood and walked toward the side of the stage. From there she could see the audience. The auditorium was packed. Hundreds of faces filled the seats. Bright lights illuminated the stage. Judges sat near the front. Industry professionals occupied several reserved rows. Everything suddenly felt very real. As the previous performer finished, applause echoed throughout the room. The performer bowed and exited. Then Victor stepped onto the stage. The audience quieted. Lily watched from backstage. Victor glanced at his notes. His expression remained serious. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. "Our next performer is Lily Harper." A polite round of applause followed. Victor continued. "She will be presenting a traditional piano piece." His introduction was noticeably shorter than many of the others. No special praise. No enthusiastic comments. Just a simple announcement. Then he stepped aside. The moment had arrived. Lily took one deep breath. Then another. She gently touched the small photo in her pocket. A reminder of home. A reminder of why she was there. Then she walked onto the stage. The bright lights immediately surrounded her. For a brief second, the audience seemed overwhelming. Rows and rows of faces stared toward her. Judges observed quietly. Cameras recorded from different angles. Every step felt important. Yet as she approached the piano, something unexpected happened. The nervousness began fading. The instrument waiting at center stage felt familiar, comforting, like an old friend. She sat down, adjusted the bench, placed her hands near the keys. The auditorium became completely silent. No movement, no conversation, just anticipation. Lily closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered her grandmother. She remembered the old piano. She remembered every sacrifice her parents had made to support her. Then she opened her eyes and began to play. The first notes floated gently through the auditorium. Soft, controlled, beautiful. The audience listened carefully. At first, many expected a standard performance. After all, Victor had not built much anticipation. Some audience members glanced at their programs. Others settled into their seats. Then the music continued. Something began changing. The notes carried emotion that could not be ignored. Every phrase felt meaningful. Every section told part of a story. Lily was not simply playing music. She was sharing something personal, something genuine. As the piece progressed, more audience members leaned forward. Conversations disappeared completely. Even small movements became less frequent. People were listening, really listening. Backstage, several contestants watched from the wings. Some exchanged surprised looks. They had heard Lily during rehearsals. But this felt different, stronger, more powerful. Months of preparation seemed to come alive through every note. Near the front row, one judge slowly lowered his pen. He had been taking notes throughout the event. Now he simply listened. Another judge folded her hands and smiled softly. The performance was having an effect. Not because of flashy techniques. Not because of dramatic gestures. Because it felt real. Lily remained completely focused. She was no longer thinking about Victor. No longer thinking about scores. No longer thinking about competition. The music had become her entire world. The melody flowed naturally. Her hands moved with confidence. Years of practice guided every movement. As she entered the middle section of the piece, the emotional depth increased. The music became richer, more expressive. The sound filled every corner of the auditorium. Some audience members found themselves unexpectedly emotional. They couldn't fully explain why. The performance simply connected with them. One woman in the audience wiped away a tear. An elderly man nodded quietly while listening. Several parents looked at their children and smiled. Everyone seemed drawn into the same experience. Even backstage, the atmosphere changed. Contestants stopped whispering. Staff members paused their work. People who had intended to walk through the hallway remained still. Nobody wanted to interrupt the moment. Meanwhile, Victor sat near the judges' section. His expression remained difficult to read. First he appeared calm, confident, almost indifferent, but as the performance continued, subtle changes became visible. He stopped writing notes. His posture shifted slightly. His eyes remained fixed on the stage. For perhaps the first time all week, he was paying full attention. Lily knew none of this. She only knew the music. The final section approached. This was the part she loved most. The section her grandmother had always enjoyed hearing. The section she had practiced hundreds of times. As she played, memories filled her mind. Afternoons beside the old piano. Encouraging smiles. Moments of doubt. Moments of growth. Every experience seemed to flow into the music. The audience could feel it. The performance no longer felt like a competition. It felt like a conversation between the pianist and everyone listening. The connection was undeniable. Then came the final passage. The room remained perfectly still. No one wanted the moment to end. Lily played the closing notes with complete focus. The melody gradually softened. The final chord echoed gently through the hall. Then silence. A deep silence. The kind that only happens when people are completely absorbed. For a second, nobody moved. The last note lingered in the air. Then everything changed. Applause erupted across the auditorium. Loud, immediate, powerful. People rose from their seats. Row after row stood up. The applause grew even louder. Some audience members cheered. Others continued clapping enthusiastically. The reaction was unlike anything Lily had expected. Her eyes widened in surprise. For a moment, she simply sat there, overwhelmed. Then she stood and bowed. The applause continued. Judges applauded. Contestants backstage applauded. Even several staff members joined in. The standing ovation lasted far longer than most performances that day. Lily could hardly believe it. She looked toward the audience and saw smiling faces everywhere. People who had never met her. People who knew nothing about her story. Yet somehow they understood what she had shared through the music. That realization touched her deeply. As she bowed again, she spotted her parents in the audience. Her mother was crying. Her father stood clapping proudly. Seeing them made Lily emotional. All the sacrifices, all the support, all the encouragement. This moment belonged to them too. Eventually the applause began to settle. Lily exited the stage. The moment she stepped backstage, contestants surrounded her. That was incredible. You were amazing. I've never heard anyone play it like that. Compliments came from every direction. Lily thanked them repeatedly. She still felt overwhelmed. Part of her wondered if she was dreaming. For days she had questioned herself. For days she had endured criticism. Now the audience had given her an answer far louder than words. As she moved through the backstage area, several staff members congratulated her. Even some judges smiled as they passed by. The atmosphere around her had completely changed. People who barely noticed her before were suddenly eager to speak with her. Yet one person remained silent. Victor. He stood near the stage entrance watching the activity. His expression was unreadable. For a brief moment, his eyes met Lily's. Neither said anything. Then he looked away. Lily found that strange. After everything that had happened, she expected some reaction. Any reaction. Instead, there was nothing. And that silence spoke louder than words. Back in the auditorium, audience members continued discussing her performance. Many considered it the highlight of the event so far. Some spoke excitedly with friends. Others mentioned specific moments they loved. The excitement continued long after she left the stage. What nobody knew yet was that this was only the beginning. The applause was powerful. The standing ovation was unforgettable. But an even bigger moment was still waiting. Because very soon, Victor would try to dismiss what everyone had just witnessed. And when he did, the audience would not stay silent. Lily could still hear the applause long after she left the stage. The sound seemed to follow her through the backstage hallways. Contestants continued stopping her to offer congratulations. Some shook her hand. Others simply smiled and told her how much they enjoyed her performance. Everything felt unreal. Only a few days earlier, She had sat alone questioning whether she even belonged at the showcase. Now people were talking about her performance as one of the strongest of the event. She was grateful but also overwhelmed. The attention was something she had never experienced before. A stage assistant handed her a bottle of water. "You should be proud of yourself." Lily smiled. "Thank you." The assistant laughed. "I don't think I've seen a reaction like that all day." Lily glanced toward the stage entrance. The applause had finally settled, and the showcase was continuing. Another performer was now taking the stage. Yet she could still feel the energy from the audience. The response had been genuine, and that meant more than any trophy ever could. A few minutes later, her parents found her backstage. The moment her mother saw her, she wrapped her in a hug. "You were incredible." Lily laughed. "So were you." "What? You cried?" Her mother wiped her eyes and smiled. "I couldn't help it." Her father shook his head. "I told you she'd make us emotional." The three of them shared a laugh. For a brief moment, everything felt perfect. But then something unexpected happened. One of the event organizers approached the family. He looked slightly uncomfortable. "Lily, we'd like you to join us in the judges section after the performances conclude." Lily nodded. "Of course." The organizer hesitated. Then he added, "There may be some discussion regarding the evaluations." The comment felt strange. "What kind of discussion?" The organizer forced a polite smile. "I'm sure everything will be explained later." Then he walked away. Lily exchanged confused looks with her parents. Something about the interaction felt unusual. Still, there was nothing she could do except wait. The remaining performances continued throughout the afternoon. Many contestants played beautifully. The audience remained engaged and supportive. Yet during breaks, conversations repeatedly returned to Lily's performance. People in the lobby discussed it. Audience members mentioned it while returning to their seats. Even volunteers backstage talked about it. The impact had clearly reached people. As the final performer finished, the audience applauded warmly. Then came the evaluation portion of the event. Judges gathered on stage to discuss the performances. Contestants sat together near the front rows. Families watched attentively. The atmosphere became serious. Everyone wanted to hear the results. Victor sat among the evaluation panel. His expression remained calm, professional, unreadable. Several judges shared positive observations about the day's performances. They praised technical skill, creativity, musical expression. The audience listened carefully. Then the discussion shifted toward standout performances. One judge immediately mentioned Lily. "I believe her performance demonstrated exceptional emotional connection." Several audience members applauded. The judge continued, "She communicated the music in a way that reached people." Another judge nodded. "I completely agree." Again, applause followed. Lily felt her face becoming warm. She wasn't used to being discussed publicly. Yet the support felt encouraging. Then Victor spoke. The room became quiet. "As always," he began, "we must separate emotional reactions from professional evaluation." His tone was calm but firm. Some audience members exchanged looks. Victor continued, "While certain performances received enthusiastic responses, popularity should not be confused with excellence." The atmosphere shifted slightly. People listened more carefully. Several judges looked toward him. Victor adjusted his notes. "In my opinion, some performances relied too heavily on emotional appeal rather than advanced technical mastery." The meaning was obvious. He was talking about Lily. The audience seemed to realize it immediately. A murmur spread through the room. Lily sat silently. Part of her wasn't surprised. After all, Victor had criticized her from the beginning. Still, hearing it publicly felt disappointing. One judge responded carefully. "Technical mastery is important. However, audience connection is also an essential part of performance." Victor nodded politely. "Of course." Then he added, "But emotional presentation should not excuse limitations." The room grew noticeably quieter. Many audience members looked confused. Hadn't they just witnessed an extraordinary performance? Why did Victor seem determined to dismiss it? The tension continued building. Then something unexpected happened. A respected guest musician seated near the front raised his hand. The organizers allowed him to speak. He stood and faced the panel. I've attended this showcase for many years. The room listened attentively. I've heard remarkable performers. Some technically brilliant. Some emotionally powerful. Occasionally both. He paused briefly. Then he looked directly toward the judges. Today's performance by Lily achieved something very rare. The audience immediately applauded. Victor remained silent. The guest continued. It connected with people. More applause followed. That is not a weakness. The applause became louder. It is the purpose of music. This time the audience responded enthusiastically. The energy in the room was changing. People were beginning to speak openly. Several audience members nodded in agreement. Others clapped before the guest had even finished speaking. Victor's expression tightened slightly. For the first time all day, he appeared uncomfortable. Then another voice joined the discussion. One of the judges spoke up. I believe the audience reaction itself tells us something important. More applause. The judge continued. Technical skill matters. But we cannot ignore the impact a performer has on listeners. The audience agreed immediately. The room erupted with supportive clapping. Lily sat frozen. She never expected any of this. She certainly never expected people to defend her publicly. The discussion continued. More judges shared positive comments about her performance. Several highlighted her musical maturity. Others praised her interpretation. Each compliment was met with audience approval. Meanwhile, Victor appeared increasingly isolated in his opinion. Yet the biggest surprise was still coming. As the event transitioned into closing remarks, audience members began leaving their seats for intermission. Many gathered in the lobby. Others remained in the auditorium discussing the performances. Within minutes, videos from the showcase started appearing online. Audience members had recorded portions of Lily's performance. Some posted clips. Others shared reactions. Comments began appearing almost immediately. People praised her talent. They praised her emotion. They praised her authenticity. The momentum grew rapidly. Several attendees showed the videos to friends nearby. Soon more people were watching. The excitement spread throughout the venue. Backstage, contestants checked their phones. Many were surprised by how quickly the clips were gaining attention. One performer approached Lily. Have you seen this? He showed her a video. Thousands of views had already appeared. Comments continued arriving every few seconds. Lily stared at the screen in disbelief. I don't understand. The contestant laughed. People love your performance. Another contestant joined them. They're also talking about Victor. Lily frowned. What do you mean? The contestant hesitated. People noticed how he treated you. Lily suddenly understood. Audience members had witnessed his comments. Contestants had witnessed them too. Staff members had seen them. What she experienced privately during rehearsals was no longer invisible. People had noticed. Throughout the evening, conversations continued spreading. Guests discussed fairness. Musicians discussed mentorship. Audience members questioned why Victor had been so critical. Nobody was angry, but many were disappointed. They expected better from someone in his position. The support for Lily continued growing. What touched her most was that people weren't defending her out of sympathy. They were responding to what they heard. The music had spoken for itself. Later that evening, contestants gathered for a reception following the showcase. The atmosphere was celebratory. People congratulated one another. Photos were taken. Conversations filled the room. Lily found herself surrounded by people she had never met. Teachers, performers, music enthusiasts. Many wanted to tell her how much her performance meant to them. One elderly woman shared a story about her late husband and how the music reminded her of him. A young student said Lily inspired her to continue practicing. A retired musician praised her ability to communicate emotion. Each conversation touched her deeply. These were real people, real experiences, real emotions. This was exactly why she loved music. Across the room, Victor stood speaking quietly with several organizers. His confident image seemed different now. More reserved, less certain. People still respected his accomplishments. But they were also questioning his judgment. For perhaps the first time in a long while, he was facing public disagreement. Lily watched briefly before looking away. She felt no satisfaction, no desire for revenge. She simply wanted to move forward. The evening continued. As guests slowly departed, one organizer approached Lily. He smiled warmly. "I hope you're proud of what happened today." Lily nodded. "I am." "You should be." The organizer paused. Then he added something she would never forget. "People will remember your performance." Lily smiled politely, but the organizer wasn't finished. "They'll also remember how you handled yourself." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "You faced criticism, pressure, doubt." Then he nodded respectfully. "And you responded with grace." Those words meant more to her than any applause. As the night came to an end, Lily walked outside with her parents. The city lights sparkled around them. The cool evening air felt refreshing. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then her father smiled. "Quite a day." Lily laughed softly. "That's one way to describe it." Her mother squeezed her hand. "No matter what happens next, remember this." "What?" "You never stopped being yourself." Lily looked back toward the concert hall. The building where she had doubted herself. The building where she had been criticized. The building where she had finally been heard. She smiled. The audience had spoken. The music had spoken. And tomorrow would bring even bigger surprises than anyone expected. The morning after the showcase felt completely different. When Lily woke up, she expected the excitement from the previous day to have faded. Instead, it had somehow grown even larger. Her phone was filled with notifications. Messages from friends. Messages from relatives. Messages from people she had not spoken to in years. Everyone seemed to be talking about the performance. At first, she thought there must be some mistake. But as she scrolled through the messages, she realized what had happened. The videos recorded during the showcase had continued spreading online throughout the night. Thousands of people had watched them, then tens of thousands. The numbers kept growing. Many viewers had never attended the event. Yet they were sharing the clips anyway. People connected with the music. They connected with the story behind it. Most importantly, they connected with Lily herself. Her parents were already awake when she entered the hotel dining area. Her father looked up from his phone and laughed. "I think you've become famous." Lily immediately shook her head. "No." He turned the screen toward her. The performance clip had gained another wave of attention overnight. Comments continued pouring in. Many praised her talent. Others talked about how emotional the performance felt. Several mentioned the way she remained respectful despite the criticism she had faced. Lily sat quietly. It was all difficult to process. Just a week earlier she had doubted whether she belonged at the showcase. Now complete strangers were encouraging her. Her mother smiled. "Your grandmother would be proud." The words immediately touched her heart. For a moment, Lily simply looked down at the table. Of all the praise she had received, that was the thought that mattered most. Later that morning, the showcase organizers hosted a closing gathering for contestants and families. The atmosphere was far more relaxed than before. The competition was over. The pressure had disappeared. People laughed freely. Conversations flowed easily. Contestants exchanged contact information and promised to stay in touch. As Lily entered the venue, she noticed something surprising. Many people recognized her immediately. Several approached to congratulate her. Others thanked her for the performance. One elderly couple explained that her music reminded them of their younger years. A young pianist asked for a photograph. Each interaction felt genuine, and each one reminded Lily why music mattered. It was never about attention. It was about connection. During the gathering, organizers announced special recognitions. Several contestants received awards for technical excellence and creativity. Applause filled the room after each announcement. Then came a special recognition chosen by audience response. The organizer stepped onto the stage and smiled. This recognition goes to a performer whose music clearly touched the hearts of many people. The room immediately began clapping before the name was even announced. Lily looked around in surprise. Then the organizer continued. Lily Harper. The applause exploded throughout the room. People stood to their feet once again. Contestants cheered. Families smiled. Several judges joined the applause. Lily felt overwhelmed as she walked toward the stage. She accepted the recognition with trembling hands. Not because of the award itself, because of what it represented. The audience had chosen it. The people listening had chosen it. That meant everything. When she returned to her seat, her parents looked emotional once again. Her father laughed. We need to stop crying at public events. Her mother smiled. Speak for yourself. The room filled with laughter. The celebration continued for another hour. Then something unexpected happened. Several representatives from music schools approached Lily. One introduced himself from a respected conservatory. Another worked with a youth music foundation. A third represented a scholarship program. Each wanted to speak with her. Each wanted to learn more about her future plans. Lily listened carefully. The opportunities felt exciting, but also overwhelming. Everything was happening so quickly. One representative smiled warmly. Talent matters. Then he added something important. But character matters too. Lily understood exactly what he meant. People had not only noticed her music, they had noticed how she handled adversity. That lesson stayed with her. Meanwhile, Victor was experiencing a very different reaction. Throughout the event, several people had quietly questioned his treatment of Lily. Some contestants discussed it openly. Audience members had noticed it as well. The videos online brought even more attention to the situation. Many viewers wondered why he had been so dismissive. Others questioned his judgment after hearing the performance. No one was attacking him personally, but people were holding him accountable. And for someone used to having his opinions accepted without challenge, that was difficult. Late in the afternoon, Lily unexpectedly crossed paths with him. The encounter happened in a hallway near one of the rehearsal rooms. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Victor stepped forward. His confident attitude seemed different now. Less certain. More thoughtful. I wanted to congratulate you. Lily was surprised. Thank you. Victor nodded. You performed very well. The compliment sounded sincere, perhaps for the first time all week. Lily thanked him again. There was an awkward pause. Then Victor spoke once more. I may have judged you too quickly. The admission clearly wasn't easy for him. Yet he said it anyway. Lily appreciated that. She could have responded with anger. She could have reminded him of every unfair comment. Instead, she simply smiled. We all make mistakes. Victor looked genuinely surprised by her response. Perhaps he expected resentment. Instead, he received kindness. After a brief conversation, they parted ways. As Lily walked away, she felt lighter. Not because she had won some argument, because she was no longer carrying frustration. The chapter was over. She could move forward. That evening, Lily and her parents finally began the drive home. The city slowly disappeared behind them. Tall buildings gave way to open roads. The familiar landscape returned. Everything felt quieter, more peaceful. During the drive, they talked about the experience, the performances, the friendships, the lessons learned. At one point, her father asked a simple question. What was the best part? Lily thought for a moment. It wasn't the applause. It wasn't the recognition. It wasn't even the opportunities. The people, she answered. Her parents smiled. Because they understood. The showcase had reminded her that music was ultimately about people. About sharing emotions. About bringing individuals together. When they finally arrived home, the first thing Lily did was walk into the living room. The old piano still stood in its usual place. Worn. Scratched. Beautiful. She ran her fingers across the keys. This piano had started everything. Without it, none of the recent events would have happened. Without it, she never would have discovered her voice. She sat down and began playing. Not for an audience. Not for judges. Not for recognition. Just because she loved it. The familiar notes filled the room. And for the first time in days, everything felt completely normal. Over the following months, exciting opportunities continued arriving. Scholarship offers. Invitations to perform. Requests for interviews. Music programs reached out. Event organizers contacted her family. Her future seemed brighter than ever. Yet despite all the attention, Lily remained grounded. She continued practicing every day. She continued learning. She continued improving. Most importantly, she never forgot where she came from. Whenever people asked about her success, she always mentioned the same thing. The old piano, her parents' support, and her grandmother's advice. Those were the foundations of everything. 1 year later, Lily stood backstage at another major performance. The venue was larger than the showcase. The audience was larger too. Hundreds of people filled the seats. Many had come specifically to hear her play. A stage manager approached. "It's time." Lily smiled and nodded. As she walked toward the stage, she reached into her pocket. The same photograph was there. The photo she carried during the showcase. The photo of her and her grandmother sitting beside the old piano. She looked at it briefly, then returned it safely to her pocket. A few moments later, she stepped into the spotlight. The audience welcomed her with warm applause. Lily sat at the piano and looked across the room. A year earlier, she would have been terrified. Now she felt grateful. Grateful for every challenge. Grateful for every lesson. Even grateful for the criticism that once seemed unfair. Because it had taught her something important. Other people's opinions can be powerful. But they should never be stronger than your belief in yourself. She placed her hands on the keys. The auditorium became silent. Then she began to play. And somewhere in her heart, she could almost hear her grandmother's voice once again. Play with your heart, not for applause. This time she smiled before the first note. Because she finally understood that she had been right all along. The applause was wonderful. The recognition was meaningful. But the real victory was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about staying true to herself when it would have been easier to give up. And that was a victory no one could ever take away.